joining us right now on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line. Let's talk a little bit of football with organized team activities, mandatory style, happening this week, next week as well, as stars of the game are appearing in front of microphones for the first time in a long time. So there's lots to talk about with my colleague from the NFL Media Group, Tom Pelissero, back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, Tom?
Speaking of jumping the shark, that was a great lead-in to me. We had the Fonz last hour. He regaled us with stories from Happy Days. Now here's the guy who tweets about Hunter Renfrow extensions. I'll take what I can get. I'll deliver here, but that is a really hard act.
Well, also, Tom, you have similar hair. You have similar hair to the Fonz. Let's put it that way.
True.
Okay, you've got that. You've got it working. I don't know if you're riding a motorcycle that Steve McQueen wants. I don't know. Yeah, you got a leather jacket, Tom? You got one of those?
That's been brought up with my wife before, and she always makes that face like, "Nah, just don't even try it."
Yeah, don't even try.
You can't pull that off.
So, Tom, let's then figuratively stay in your lane. Let's jump right into it here. The question I get from so many people, I attempted to ask it of Les Snead, and I'm now going to ask it to you. Because I know crossed T's and dotted I's and things of that nature on contracts. How are the Rams able to do what they are doing by paying significantly and enriching with market value contracts, in other cases above market value contracts for their stars, and keep it all under the cap? Tom?
Rich, I would start with the fundamentals of the salary cap are that every dollar you spend hits the cap eventually. It is always a 1-to-1 ratio. It is a matter of how you account for that money, and there are certainly mechanisms, and always have been, to push your cash dollars now into future cap dollars. In other words, a very simple way to explain it, if you give somebody a $20 million signing bonus, that doesn't count $20 million on this year's cap. That counts over a 5-year contract, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. So you're able to count those into future years. So it's always possible to spend more cash than the cap space that you have at any given moment. But there is no such thing as cap magic, again, because those dollars you spend are going to come back eventually. We've seen it with teams like the Saints, who people talk about, well, they just keep rolling it and rolling it and rolling it. Well, this season on their cap, they're counting Drew Brees for $11.5 million. They're counting Teron Armstead for $12.8 million. That's a couple of pretty good players that you could be able to sign, but you can't because you devoted those cash dollars years ago, and now those players are no longer on your team, so the cap counts now. In terms of the Rams, I do find it entertaining that people are shocked that they could find a way to retain the offensive and defensive players of the year. Those weren't free, and those weren't, contracts that they just conceptualized in the past week here. Go back to March. They traded away Robert Woods to gain cap space. They did not opt to up their offer one more time for Von Miller, and he leaves for Buffalo. That's also driven by keeping your cap healthy. If there were no salary cap, Odell Beckham Jr. would probably already have signed for the Rams. And just the other day, when they re-signed Cooper Kupp, they cut the guy who had the interception in the NFC Championship game. And those are all cap-related decisions. What you're trying to do always in the NFL is balance what you're trying to accomplish now with what you're trying to accomplish in the future, which is why, if you go into the details on the Cooper Kupp contract, they didn't even lower his salary as much as they could have. They could have saved an extra $8 million, but they wanted to keep both the Kupp and Aaron Donald cap numbers this year relatively flat because that's how they had it budgeted. They've got a window right now. They're coming off a Super Bowl win. They're going to do what it takes to be able to retain their core players, but they did let some other guys walk out of the building. The only way that you get yourself out of that cycle of restructuring contracts, pushing those cap dollars in the future, at some point is to not spend cash. The teams that have mountains of cap space year after year, at some point just didn't spend money. That's how they have it. They had to tank out. That's not what teams do when they're in a position to contend. That's why the Saints for years pushed it the way they did, and that's why the Rams are approaching their cap decisions and their contract decisions the way they are right now.
Well, when I asked this question of Les Snead the other day, Tom, the day after he gave Donald the contract that he gave him, and again, I've been at this almost 20 years with the NFL. I don't remember a contract given to somebody that doesn't add years, just adds dollars. But again, he's a unicorn. And then the day before Kupp signed is when he was on this program. So I asked him that, and he mentioned the player Greg Gaines, who was a fourth-round pick in 2019, and how significant a contribution he gives to the team. And he says, like, that's the types of guys that we draft. We don't F all the picks. You know, that's how we do that. So we got those guys, and so we can pay the other guys. But he kept on mentioning over and over again the window we have, doing it in the window that we have. And I asked him about the window that he has. And, of course, he's not going to mention on the air, well, it's, you know, the credit card bill is coming due this year. You might know that. What is the window you think the Rams have based on the way that they are correctly and appropriately and smartly building a team to win and keep winning right now?
We've got a veteran quarterback in Matthew Stafford, who they also just extended.
Right.
If you look at Aaron Donald's contract details, it sure looks like this is okay, Aaron, please give us 2 more years. That's what we need. That's how they seem to be approaching it, is within a 2-year window. But again, it's not as if the window then slams shut.
Right.
Maybe you don't have Aaron Donald anymore, but you've still got really good players in Cooper Kupp. We've seen quarterbacks play for a long, long time, and you wonder if Matthew Stafford continues to improve as he did over the course of the last season and played his best down the stretch and into the playoffs. He may decide that he's willing to keep playing. You have to consider Sean McVay as a part of this too. There is no salary cap for coaches. So ultimately, he's going to end up getting paid more money than probably any coach in NFL history, with the exception of possibly Bill Belichick. It's a matter of how long you can keep that entire group together. There's something sexy about the Rams right now, too, where you do at times get players to maybe take a little bit less. I don't know what Bobby Wagner might have been offered elsewhere, but he lands there for a reason. Allen Robinson had another strong offer. He had like 4 teams involved. He ends up choosing the Rams because he saw an opportunity to go there and produce and make more money for himself in the big picture. That's always kind of the product of winning, but in terms of their window, they're going for it over the next couple of years here. But again, to go back to the way that they even structured the Kupp and the Donald deals, they are striking that balance between now and in the future. With regard to the draft picks, everybody always says the reason that a lot of GMs are reluctant to trade away, particularly their first-round picks, their high picks, is because that's your young, cost-controlled workforce. But when you opt to do what the Rams have done and trade those picks away to get a Jalen Ramsey or to get a Matthew Stafford, remember, that's also dollars you're not spending on those rookies that maybe you can take with, hey, our first-round pick this year, it would have been not that far off from the money we're paying Bobby Wagner. We'll pay Bobby Wagner right now and let somebody else develop those players while we're trying to go and win another Super Bowl.